Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Hope you're all well. And you join me in Buckingham Street, Westminster. And you join me at the house of Samuel Pepys, 1633 to 1703. Diarist and Secretary of the Admiralty, lived here from 1679 to 1688. Now, anyone that's listened to the audiobook recording thing that I put on of Samuel Pepys, after his imprisonment in the Tower, in the non-jurors thing, he was basically rendered homeless because he'd lost his job and the accommodation that went with it. And when it mentions that Will Hewer showed all the love and loyalty of a son and opened up his house to Samuel Pepys, this was that house. Samuel, by this point, widowed and was in what we'd call a long-term relationship with Mrs. Mary Skinner, who he would remain with until his death. Will Hewer and Mrs. Skinner didn't get on very well. So, this is the house number 1. In 1679, Samuel and Mrs. Mary Skinner must have liked this street pretty well, because in a house on this site, badly damaged and in the wars and repaired, in a house on this site, which we'll go and see now, they took up that property themselves. So there is a plaque which I'll show you. Excellent, that's perfect. Van's going. This is the house, or where it was. And this is its plaque, which is on the wall just here. In a house formerly standing on this site lived Samuel Pepys, 1633 to 1703, diarist, and Robert Harley, Earl of Oxford, 1661 to 1724, statesman. And in this house lived William Etty, 1784 to 1849, painter, and Clarkson Stanfield, 1739 to 1867, painter. So a few famous ones lived in the house on this site. And as we say goodbye to Buckingham Street, this house, when Pepys took it over, would have originally overlooked the river. And here you see York Gate. Please bear that in mind, because we will be going there. But this video basically is Pepys on the piss, really. Different drinking establishments. Now, the one I'm going to take you to now wasn't a drinking establishment in Samuel Pepys' time. It was just used as cellars in those days, and these cellars are rumoured, part of it's rumoured to be up to 600 years old. But yeah, I'll just point you down a minute. Yeah, we shall go and have a look. We're going to London's reputed oldest functioning wine bar. The cellars are said to date up to 600 years, and when we get to a certain part in the cellars, it will take us underneath Samuel Pepys' home. These stairs. Where we've come from. Watergate Walk. Cross over the road. These rather modern looking buildings, some of them. Get myself out the way, just here. And our location. Gordon's Wine Bar on Villiers Street, London WC2, or Westminster WC2 actually. This is reputed to be London's oldest functioning wine bar. But interestingly enough, having just seen some plaques just now, up on this building over here is Rudyard Kipling, 1865 to 1936, poet and story writer, lived here from 1889 to 1891. That's where he lived. But Gordon's is our main location today. Gordon's was founded in the 1890s by an Angus Stafford Gordon. He kept it, his son kept it, his grandson kept it. Then, interestingly enough, come the 1970s, it was sold to Louis Gordon. Now, Gordon, the same surname, Louis Gordon is of no relation to Angus Stafford Gordon, so that's interesting. But yeah, Louis took it on in the 1970s, and he died, and I believe it's in 2002. His wife owns it now, and it is overseen by their son. So yeah, Gordon's Wine Bar, and in we shall go. Gordon's Wine Bar, London's oldest surviving wine bar. An amazing little place, not somewhere that Pepys would have drank, but we get to go underneath Pepys' home when we go into this one, because it is a cellar. So in we shall go. The walls of this one are absolutely lined with memorabilia, so it's an interesting one. Sorry. When the king abdicated to marry Wallace Simpson. And as I said in our opening scene, Although this isn't a place that Samuel Pepys would have drank, we can go underneath Samuel Pepys' home. Look at the old wine bottle in there. I have a glass of sweet white port. And as we go under here, under this bit. Don't know why I'm ducking. Just under here, this bit here, we are now underneath Samuel Pepys' parlour. And yes, that rumbling that you can hear is the Thames. Sit down and have a drink in the memory of Samuel Pepys. And off we rampage to have some more drink, and you'll join me in a minute. I'll pause you for a sec. Right, and now we've finished our drink in the somewhat inebriated memory of Samuel Pepys. Buckingham Street, where he lived, and the next location, which is the Watergate, York Gate water steps. These, before the Victoria Embankment went up, the Thames come right up to here, and you could literally come here and catch a boat up, down or across the Thames, and that's what Samuel Pepys would often do. So I'll take you downstairs. Number 12, Buckingham Street, where Pepys lived. And this remnant is basically what survives of the old Thames frontage. I think in Pepys' days he could have heard the Thames from his window. Wait a sec, and then we'll go down the stairs. Victoria Embankment Garden, this is. Down here. This gateway marks the position of the north bank of the River Thames for the construction of the Victoria Embankment in 1862. It was built in 1626 by Nicholas Stone, master mason for George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham, to serve as the Watergate to York House, which the Duke had acquired from the Archbishop of York in 1624. The arms on the riverfront and the motto Fidei Quaticula Crux the cross is the touchstone of faith. On the land side are those of the Villiers family. York House was demolished in 1675 and the streets were laid out on the site. In 1893, the gate having fallen into decay, the London County Council obtained parliamentary powers to acquire and preserve it as an object of public interest. And here it is, and luckily it was preserved. And in that spirit, off we shall rampage into the sunset, or sunrise, whatever you want to call it. It's not very sunny today, but off we shall rampage to our next historical drinking location. That we know that Pepys went to this one. As I said with Gordon's, we know Pepys didn't drink there because it's an 1890s establishment, but going there allowed us under Pepys's house, under his parlour, so that's why that featured. So our next location is one that we know that he definitely visited, and off we shall go down the Thames. And for our historical look back on this one, we see York Gate and Buckingham Street as it would have been, as Samuel Pepys and Mary Skinner would have known it in their day, with the Thames coming right up to the gate. And the house that you can see on the far right with the little tree by it, that is Samuel and Mary's original house, the second property that they moved to in Buckingham Street. Number 12, which was the first property that we saw in our little tour, when Pepys was released from prison, he was basically rendered jobless and homeless, although comfortably off, of course. And this is, of course, as I mentioned, when Will Hewer, who we see here, showed the loyalty and love of a son and opened up his house to Samuel Pepys in Buckingham Street. So, you see the two men here, they must have had a good relationship and a very, very close bond and friendship. Pepys never had sons of his own, so it was nice that he had that in his life. And they obviously liked Buckingham Street, Samuel Pepys and Mrs. Mary Skinner, and I do correct myself, Will Hewer and Mary Skinner got on okay. It was Samuel Pepys's nephew and Mrs. Mary Skinner that didn't like each other. So I correct myself on that one. But yeah, they obviously liked Buckingham Street because they moved from Will Hewer's place and took residence up on their own place right at the end of the street, which would have overlooked the river in those days. So not only would you have heard the river, you would have seen all the sights and sounds of a busy, bustling Thames. Just like this. This is a nice colour portrait. Late Georgian era, early Victorian, and shows York Gate and the Thames as it was before. The encroachment of the Victoria embankment basically robbed all this and turned it into land. I mean, when you look at the Thames nowadays, it's a much narrower river than it would have been. In Samuel Pepys's day, he was often known to walk all the way from London to Woolwich along the banks of the Thames. He liked his walking. So we see a little, not lost world, because remnants of it do still remain. But we see the gate here and Samuel Pepys's original house over to the left with the tree by, a much larger tree by this time, of course. That house was taken down in the late Georgian, early Victorian era and replaced with the one that we see today, which doesn't look too dissimilar to what we see here. But the cellar underneath the house, much, much older than these houses indeed, and that remained. And in Samuel Pepys's day, that cellar was used for storage of books and wine by the house above. Here we see a nice engraved image of York Gate as it was. Thames coming up against it. This is late 18th century, this one, early 19th century. And Gordon's Wine Bar. Angus Staff Gordon, which is Angus Stafford Gordon, who founded it. A free vintner started Gordon's Wine Bar in 1890. His son took over after him, and his grandson after him, all three had the same name. The grandson worked at the bar for 3 years as a young man, but went off to become an actor, something he loved. In March 2009, Angus Stafford Jr. came to the bar and met Simon Gordon, Louis Gordon's son, and kindly brought along a batch of
wonderful old photographs, some of which are now hung in the bar. This is from Gordon's website, this. But here is Angus Staff Gordon, the founder of Gordon's Wine Bar, when he's a slightly younger man. Here's another one of him as a slightly older man. Obviously a seaside holiday or seaside residence by the look of it with this one. Louis Gordon. In 1972, Louis purchased Gordon's from Staff Gordon. Someone bearing the same surname but of no relation, which has been said. He was the former chairman of the family's sherry shippers, who for more than 200 years remained sole importers of Domecq to Britain. Father of 6, many of whom worked behind the bar, Louis was an exuberant, gravelly-voiced character who bought this historic watering hole after a lifetime in the wine trade. During his 30-year ownership, Louis preserved the bar's special character, fine wines, old casks of port and sherry memorabilia, and crusting the walls, even keeping the cobwebs. After a 6-month closure for what was supposed to have been a revamp, a tradition that the family will continue to preserve, it is now been taken on the mantle. Louis passed away in 2002. His wife Wendy took ownership of the bar, with their eldest son Simon taking up the reins. This is a nice image, 1972 to 2002, new owner. Louis Gordon, chancing upon the bar with his own name, decided to take over Gordon's Wine Bar. This photo was taken in 1975. And here we have the man himself with a more recent colour photo, Louis Gordon. There was a Gordon's closure scare. A disagreement with the landlords at the time, Greycoat, began in the late 1980s, which culminated in 1990 with the threat to pull the building down. The bar fought against the complete refurbishment of the building and the sharp increase in rent prices, launching a closure party and urging everyone to write to the landlord. Here's an original article from the time which hangs up in the bar. I'll pause on this for a little while and you can have a read or just carry on watching as you like. Moving on now. Luckily, Gordon's was saved, and 2002 family succession. After Louis's death, May 2002, Wendy Gordon takes ownership of the bar, while Simon Gordon takes over the management. And of course, the cellar, which is much older than the buildings above it, as I said in Pepys's day, was used for storage of books and wine for the house above. And it's a lovely image to think of Samuel going down there with a candle to sort through his books, or to choose a selected wine for one of his social occasions. He was a very sociable man, and gentlemen in those days kept a close eye and a close tab on their wines and such like, and we know that Samuel Pepys kept a close eye and a close tab on his books. This is an AI generated image, of course, but it's a nice image to imagine him down there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Buckingham Street, York Gate and Gordon's Wine Bar. I hope you all enjoyed this one. Thanks very much for watching, and join me all again soon for our next Peeps on the Piss based location, and it's from his life a pretty momentous one. Really, he saw a great momentous event unfold from our next location, so join me for that one soon.